Okay, good evening, everyone. If we can begin, first of all, thank you for your attendance today. Just need to inform you, I've been given a slip here. The public session of this meeting will be recorded and made available for viewing on the council's YouTube channel. When you are speaking, please can you make sure that your microphone is activated. So all future meetings are now recorded and available on YouTube. So please make sure that the mic is turned on so that any comments that are made are picked up. I'm aware that last time we had issues with the microphone as well. Hopefully we don't have the same technical issues this time round. So we'll kick off straight away. First item on the agenda is apologies for absence.
We've received apologies from Councillor Webb, Chair.
Thank you very much. Are there any other apologies? No, perfect. And therefore, I'm presuming we have one substitute member serving for this committee today.
Yes, Chair, we have Councillor Challoner for Councillor Webb.
Perfect. Right. Item number 3, to receive any declarations of interest under the Members' Code of Conduct. Are there any declarations of interest? So just for the benefit of the recording, that's Councillor Lewis declaring a conflict of interest because of an early years provider. Yeah. Item agenda number 4, to confirm and sign the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of July. That's pages 4 to 15. Are we happy that they are a correct record of the discussions that day? Yeah, approved. Okay, thank you. And I don't believe we have any members from the public forum today. I can't see any. No, perfect. Just getting through this quite quick. So agenda item number 6 is a programme update of the Family Hubs and Start of Life. And I believe that is going to be Teresa McNally who's going to be presenting that to us. Sorry, can I just stop you? Are we okay for that microphone just to be turned so that you can get picked up? Okay, thank you.
Dear. Sorry about that. There we go. Sit in more seats. I'll sit down. Yeah.
Yeah, I can. Oh, it's fine. Yeah. I'll talk a bit louder if that's okay. So I'm Teresa McNally and I'm the Integrated Service Manager for the Family Hubs and Start for Life programme in Dudley. Is that okay? Yeah, okay. I'm providing an update to you all this evening. There we go. So just a brief purpose of the report and recommendations for this evening. So we're looking for yourselves to note the content of the report and also just to kind of note that continued engagement between the Department of Education, and we've had a visit from them today, which has gone very well, partners and key stakeholders. And we're looking to develop that around the sustainability beyond the 31st of March 2025 when the programme is due to end. A very brief bit of background in terms of the programme. So in October 2021, there was a 301.75 investment across 75 local authorities. And that was to deliver the Start for Life model and family services across all of those local authorities. That was to create a network of family hubs. And that was around improving that integrated access for services at the earliest opportunity for our families. And the vision was around that first 1001 days, which is that kind of conception to 2 years. We have funded strands, which is across all of the hubs and their parenting support, parent infant emotional wellbeing, early language in the home learning environment, infant feeding support, and we have a parent carer panel, which is a requirement of the programme. And in Dudley, that's known as Dudley Family Voices. And we have a published Art for Life offer, which is available. And I think you have the links in your reports if you wish to take a look at that. Okay, so our governance links to our prevention executive group, fondly known as PEG, and the membership there is health visiting, maternity, integrated early years, our youth colleagues and Dudley Council for Voluntary Service. And that is around making sure that the work that continues across the hubs is a true partnership arrangement. We've got a continuous evolvement of our governance, so that's about us developing, changing and shaping things for the future and making sure that we're fit for purpose as we continue forward with our programme. And obviously we're in our final year, so we're looking at those reflections and opportunities for continued growth and how we're working together with our families and partners. So one of our key elements is ready to learn, ready for school. And again, our integrated early years service transformation is part of that. We work really closely with integrated early years, and that's around the early language and home learning environment, our parenting. So looking at all of those broad aspects that support families and children and young people and how that helps to grow and build resilience for our families. And also, as you're probably already aware, we are on the lower end in terms of that regional and national average in terms of a good level of development. So such as today, I've been speaking to the health visiting team about ages and stages questionnaires and how are we identifying our young children so that we know that we can put that investment and that energy into activities, resource to support those good levels of development further down the line before they enter into school. And we have a whole system approach, and again this conception to reception approach and how we work together with the Health and Wellbeing Board and obviously the new group, which is a partnership group for our infant, children and young people strategically. So some of the things that we've already achieved, our birth registrations, I'm pleased to say that our figure that's 898 there, we're well over 1,000 now. So 2 of our hubs offer birth registrations. That's together in partnership with our registrars in Dudley, which we're really proud of. And that's been a real success. And that provides us with that opportunity when those new parents or grandparents come in with baby, registering before they're 6 weeks, that we can engage families and talk to them about how we can work together with them, what are they worried about, what might they need support from us moving forward. And it's just relationship building for if they need to come back through the door in the future. And that's the most important thing, is there's trusting early relationships for families in our communities. Triple P for babies, I never thought I would hear the day we would say that, but actually it's proven to be really successful. Parents are open to that, and that's around, it's tough to be a parent sometimes, and actually how do we work together with families to give them the skills and the knowledge and the resource and some support, because actually we all need a bit of hand-holding and moral support, and that's around how they can tap into that, whether that's a face-to-face group activity, whether that's an online activity if you're a working parent and you need to access online. So lots of different opportunities for our families to engage. And, ultimately, we want that breadth of opportunity for our young people and our babies and children. Our Dudley Family Voices, this is a real passion for all of us that work across the hubs, because what we're really doing is we're listening to families, and we're taking those opportunities to listen to families to really engage and find out more about what does it mean to be a parent in Dudley, what can we access, who's there for me when I need that support, whether that is a community group, whether that's an authority, whether that's a health service. So we need to listen, and when we listen to families, we can then think about how do we change things for families, and how can we improve to have improved outcomes for their children in the future. We've had a very successful pilot in Lye, where we've worked together with our paediatric consultants, and we've actually had a hospital-based neurodiverse clinic, and it's actually coming to the community, and feedback from families is that they have that welcoming environment. The clinic is operated in a more informal way, and parents are very, very receptive to that, and the children have responded accordingly. So we're looking to extend that pilot for the future. And again, linking back to Dudley Family Voices, 2 surveys have been completed, one last year and one this year, and we've just concluded the analysis on those to compare what's our rate of improvement, how have we changed, and what have we done better for families from last year to this year. So hopefully we'll have an opportunity to share that in the future. Our integrated workforce, family hub practitioners for maternity, health visiting and family support. And that tripartite arrangement of that close working together means our services are seamless. So once mum delivers baby, we've got that seamless opportunity to work together to put a package of support around a family. So anyway, I'll leave it there because I'm conscious of time. Let me just see if I can make it a bit bigger. Oops. So, let me make that any bigger, but I think you have got this in your reports. So as I've said, we're doing well with our data. We've got over 2,827 registrations that have been completed. So one of the things we try to encourage is for families to register with us so that we know how many people are coming through the door and how many families are connecting with us. So that's really important, and we're looking to improve that.
Can I just interject a minute, please? Just for reference, that is on page 20 in the agenda booklet. So there's a large version of that available.
Thank you, Councillor McGann. We've got some breakdown data there in terms of our bookings. So individuals attending sessions. So in April this year, we started off at about 900 individuals. And as you can see, by July, we've gone to, again, well over 1,000. So you can start to see our progress and our increased offer and the impact that we're starting to have across our 5 hubs. Our sensory sessions, I've been at the new one today at Codesley. We've had over 155 individuals that have attended 38 sessions, and parents can book those sessions for themselves, for a small group of families, or if they wish to do it through an organisation supported by, for example, Autism Outreach or Safe Families or any other organisation, that can be booked as well. We have lots of different sessional activities, whether that's our Brilliant Babies and Stay and Play. So again, you can see that we've got on average about 80 per month across the network there. Stay and Play, we're running at about 3,137 individuals supported. That's an awful lot of Stay and Plays, and believe you and me, that is a really fun time. And actually today we've had some great opportunities and activities going on board, which the Department of Education have been able to see. And our parenting, which we aim to continually improve. So our average monthly attendance is about 94%, which I think is we're doing okay, but we can always do better. So a key part of the programme is to upskill the teams across the hubs, and we've done that through a range of training such as restorative practice, motivational interviewing, video interactive guidance, Fatherhood Institute. So a whole raft of training for our colleagues to support their learning, support their thinking and shape their delivery, and that's gone really well. And some of these, such as video interactive guidance, last up to 18 months. So it's a real commitment to the programme. Not forgetting our young people who are really important to us in Dudley, and our family hub offer extends up to the age of 19, and each of the youth workers is actually based in the hub, and it was really lovely today to show the DFE, not just the conception to reception, but actually look at what our young people have done in forms of the artwork and how they've contributed to the shaping of the hubs. And I think that's been really key. And actually talking to our young people as well, and offering more group activity out into our local schools on knife crime, sexual health, etc. So nice to have that broad offer and actually understand what our young people need. That's just a very brief overview of our year 3 as we're in our final year. This is just some of the things linked to, obviously, our requirements to make sure that we're compliant with the DFE in terms of ensuring that we are following the programme and we are lawful within that. And also, obviously, the programme doesn't go beyond the 31st of March. So we are looking to sustain that through funding options. And we did have a conversation with the DFE on the 26th of July about, what can local authorities expect for the future? And we've continued that conversation today. And we've recently had a ministerial letter come out to us. And obviously we'll have more information when we get to the October budget. A little bit there about equality impact, which links back to our opportunity to bring paediatrics into the community and how that can improve things for our families, such as care back in the community, reducing waiting list appointments, and reducing inequality of access to appointments, such as 3 buses, 4 buses to get. That's just linked to our council priorities, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with, so I won't necessarily talk you through that. A little bit about our opportunities to work more broadly on the programme, so linking with the DCVS and our peer-to-peer offer to ensure that our community, voluntary and faith sector groups are part of that development and how they can help us and support shape the offer for families. So some really exciting developments with our Real Mama Tribe, Mindful Moms, Safe Families, etc. So really looking to develop some of those opportunities, whether it's free baby massage, etc. communities. And we've had 15 codes this year to support identified families. That's where we are. Those are our 5 hubs. And it's me.
Thank you very much for that report. That's quite a comprehensive overview of what's happening at the family hubs. I've got to say I had the pleasure of visiting all 5 over the August month, and it's quite pleasing to see all the positive work that's going on there as well.
Thank you.
I'll open it up to the floor first of all if there's any questions that anyone wants. Councillor Roberts.
Yeah, thanks for the report, mostly positive. But on page 19 of the report, talk about the good levels of development with the 2 to 2.5. You say it is persistently lower than the regional national level. What are you doing about that to improve it?
Okay, so what we have as Strand, and our Strand leads, one of whom is our service manager for integrated early years. And one of the things that we have in Dudley is we have our Dudley scorecards. So together with public health, with integrated early years, myself and the family hub managers, what we're looking at is the scorecards, and we can see the areas where we know that the children are struggling to reach those attainments. So what we're looking to do moving forward is that universal proportionality, and we've talked about this today with the Department of Education about how we actually put more energy than we're already putting into identified areas where we know that we've got gaps, so that we can actually, through our ages and stages questionnaires, we can identify really early the children that potentially, because of siblings, because of conversations with parents, may struggle to reach that good level of development. And through access to universal resource, through access to stay and play, through access to targeted groups such as Talking Tots, maybe a referral to speech and language or a broader opportunity, we can then actually put that time and effort into that particular children, and we're looking to then improve those levels.
If I may just add to that as well, as Teresa said, as part of the report or the presentation, Ready to Learn, Ready for School is one of the key priorities of the Health and Wellbeing Board. It's one of the 3 priorities, and so our work across health and with our public health colleagues as well, really contributing to all of the factors, not just educational factors, but a whole range of factors that impact on children's readiness and their GLD levels. So there's a much broader partnership work beyond the hubs, but the hubs are a critical part of that partnership.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Azad.
Hi. On page 22 of the report, I was very pleased to see that the trial hosted at Family Hub in Lye was successful, and thinking of community paediatric clinics moving from the hospital into the community, I can see how that can be advantageous, particularly for those children with neurodiverse conditions and associated difficulties, particularly travelling travelling to a site that's closer to home, perhaps, and being in a familiar environment. So when they do actually see the clinician, they're probably a bit more comfortable and a bit more amenable, making the assessments more successful. On the next page, on page 23, reducing waiting times. How would moving a clinic from a hospital base into the community setting reduce waiting times for our families?
So one of the things that we've worked on with the hospital is to look at how families access their appointments. So one of the critical things that we talked about was the volume of parents who miss appointments and don't attend appointments. So there was a high rate of DNAs at the hospital. And what's been observed since bringing that service into the community is parents have turned up for that appointment. So by seeing those parents promptly, then obviously we're not reissuing appointments and reissuing appointments. One of the things they're looking at is how they can perhaps offer out more appointments within the time. So potentially that the consultants may be able to see more because there's less travel time. There's specialist nurses, so you've got the consultant and then you've got the specialist nurse in the afternoon. So they've been able to factor in more appointments in the morning for the consultants, and then they've still been able to have those appointments in the afternoon with the specialist nurses. I mean, the reducing waiting list is ambitious and we know that, but I think one of the things that we are keen to do is to work together with our colleagues at Dudley Group and look for new creative ideas on how that we do that. And I think this is a first step. I don't think we've cracked it. I think it's a first step, and I think we learn the lessons from this pilot and from the energy that's been put into it and the shared commitment, and how then do we utilise that to see what are our reflections on this. The very fact that they've gone back to their board to explore how do we expand this programme, I think demonstrates the commitment and they see the positives in it. But I take your point in the fact that I think it's a journey of change, isn't it? It's a journey of change.
Have other boroughs or other neighbouring boroughs trialled or do in fact provide these services within the community already, like in Birmingham, because I think perhaps they do. Oh, and Sandwell Community Paediatric Clinic.
We spoke to the DFE today and they weren't aware of anything.
And the assessment, these neurodiverse appointments, are they specific to sort of ASD assessments or ADHD assessments, or are they sort of developmental delay? Because community paediatrics is a broad range.
It's vast, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a group of paediatric consultants that see exactly what you've described. You know, those young children and young people with those identifiable needs that come into the community to access their appointment. I think it is good to say, from a parental feedback point of view, one of the things that has been observed is the positive impact for siblings that have to come along to that appointment. And I think let's not lose sight of the whole family and looking at the whole family impact in such as an appointment as this. So a sibling would normally be in a waiting room, quite a clinical space. And actually what's benefited the whole family here is that everybody's been able to engage, everybody's had a space within the hub and felt comfortable and welcome. And also that their families have also been able to find out more about services that are happening within their community and have been quite surprised at what the offer is within their community that they can access quite readily. So I think it's looking beyond that clinical footprint and what is the value added to this opportunity.
I think it's a wonderful move in the right direction. When you talk about from conception to reception, I mean, if these families are already familiar with the hubs and those spaces, I think that's wonderful. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
And I'd like to back that up. Actually, that's something that I saw in my family visit to the family hubs, that actually, because the children were going to the hub for other sessions, it was already a familiar setting and it was less threatening. And I think one of the feedbacks that parents actually said was they weren't having that battle with their child in the morning of we're going to the hospital today and everything else. It was easier to get the young person to that meeting as well. A question for myself, on page 21, you refer to the staff training has formed a key element of the grant funding, and you talk about the various different training that the workforce has gone through. How long would you say is reasonable for the training to be implemented?
Sorry, say that again. How long?
How long do you think is reasonable for someone to have gone through a training and then to be implementing that training?
So we're already implementing.
Sorry, it's not picking it up. If you turn that one off, sorry.
Yeah. I've turned it off now. You're okay.
Thank you. So the training courses that our practitioners have been on are implemented almost straight away. So, for example, if they've been on a parenting training course, they'll implement that and deliver that to their families or within a group setting straight away. So it does not lack a period of time in terms of that kind of implementation.
So would you say if a staff member has gone on training in January, that as of August, that training has not been implemented is a concern for you?
Are you referring to something specific?
I am, but just generally speaking. Okay.
I think if I may, I think it depends, if I'm being really honest, because I think you need to consider. So, for example, if it's something like the VIG programme, so the Video Interactive Guidance, that's an 18-month programme, and colleagues would be accessing that in a supported way. So colleagues have just completed a half-year review, so they're partway through their training. So they need to complete that with a parent in a supported environment, because the staff are not fully trained at that point themselves. So they might need support from, say, a specialist health visitor to implement some elements of that programme. So VIG's a different case in point, because obviously it's an 18-month programme and we're not at the end of that 18 months for those colleagues. So I think it depends on the training that you're referencing, and also it's subject to demand as well, because if we have already a comprehensive training programme and somebody did the training in January, we may already have that mapped out. So it might be that they're not delivering that training because other colleagues are. So there would be a rationale potentially behind that. But if you have a specific incident that you'd like us to explore, then obviously we can do that.
Okay, that'd be useful. And I think it's also important that staff are communicated as to why that training hasn't been put into place.
Okay.
So that the workforce feel involved in that
Yeah.
process. What you don't want is a workforce that have gone on training and then they don't implement it, and
Yeah.
therefore they feel like they've wasted their time going on a training session.
I don't think any of it's wasted, but I think it's about upskilling. But I do take on board, and one of the things that we fed back to the DFE today was this programme has been quite intense in its training of colleagues, and I think they've taken that feedback on board so that they can go back to their colleagues and think about that for future programmes. I think as a programme, there's lots of points of reflection and learning that can come from this for future programmes.
Thank you. And 2 more points for myself.
Okay.
The next part that you talked about was the youth offer, and
Yes.
the fact that the programme extends to the age of 19 years old. We sat in this committee 2 months ago and we said that the best place for children is school. That's where the progress will be made. If the hubs aren't accessible outside of natural school times,
Yeah.
how can you achieve those outcomes for?
So the youth work specifically is being delivered in schools. So feedback from one of our local schools is some of the young people who perhaps have not attended lessons, but they've actually turned up for the group work sessions that our youth workers have delivered because they're interested in those topics. So we're working together with the schools to utilise this as opportunities to engage young people in things that are interesting to them and that might be things that they want to know about, because they're things that happen to them when they leave outside those school gates and they go onto the streets, or they're hanging around with their mates at night. And so it's about how do we work together with schools to engage young people in some of these really important messages that will potentially, save a life. If we're talking about knife crime and their health and well-being, potentially save a life.
I guess the other thing is that the Family Hub is a network of a partnership. So we deliver things specifically out of our family hubs, but there are other youth organisations across the borough that engage in activities for young people, which forms part of our partnership. And the other thing is that we have got a small amount of youth work resource, a detached work team that delivers some work across the borough, and also we've got a couple of youth clubs that still deliver some work. So there is an offer. It's not a huge offer in terms of what the local authority do, but the partnership offer, there's one there, certainly.
Yeah.
Thank you. And the final thing for me is, we spoke about the fact that working families and how families can self-refer to this.
Yeah.
If you are a working family of a traditional 9-to-5 job, how do you get the support, or how do you start to access or start that dialogue so that you can get the support?
So our families can reach out to us and they can contact us via email or phone. We obviously have voicemail, message, etc. A lot of our relationships with families are built from those very early days, as I said, back to birth registration. So hopefully they know that when they return to work that we are here for them. Our Start for Life published offer is readily available. It's out there in the public domain, and families can see what services can be accessed. That's why we're so committed to having a comprehensive parenting offer that is online, because we all appreciate that families are working, and might be shifts, it might be 9 to 5, it might be weekends. This is why we're so committed to our community and voluntary sector organisations as well. We know that there is a breadth of services that can be there to support families. Our voluntary and community sector organisations are delivering from the hubs, but equally they are very, very out there in the community in the evenings, at weekends, and they're also there to support our families. And this is where we are part of that family hub network that Nigel's talked about, because we don't do this alone. And I think we have to look really broadly in Dudley about how we all work together, whether we come from a faith organisation, whether it's community, whether it's authority or health. This is around us all. It's that old adage, and I say it, but it takes a village to raise a child, but actually it takes a village to run a family hub. We don't do it alone, and it is very much around how do we work together with our families, what do our families tell us. But I do take your point, because I think there's some growth opportunities there for us.
Any other comments or questions?
A very quick one, and thanks for the information regarding the finance and the risk. Is there an underlying message there? Because we're only 6 months away from March 2025. I remember sitting here maybe 18 months ago when we talked about hubs, etc., and we talked about the worry and the concerns about money carrying on beyond that.
Yeah.
Are you nervous? Are you sitting comfortably thinking, no, what we're doing is going to continue? Or is this fantastic work going to fall on its backside come March?
I was just saying, do you want to answer that, or are you happy for me? Need to turn that on.
Okay, I'll take that one on. I would say that we are quietly confident that we will be able to continue to deliver the services at the level that we're delivering them at the moment. We have been thinking through and working through our sufficiency arrangements for quite some time. We've been undertaking our kind of budget management approach in this current year that secures us somewhat in terms of next year and beyond. So really thinking through the way in which we utilise the grant that we currently have, the general fund contribution from the council into our family hub arrangements, and the contributions from public health and our other health partners in order to secure us going forward. Recently, colleagues took a paper to Dudley Group in terms of seeking that sustainability commitment in relation to the specialist maternity services. We've had a tacit agreement or commitment from our public health colleagues around the continuation of our specialist health visiting and specialist family workers. And as I say, in terms of the general fund contribution that the council makes in terms of sustaining some of those services as well. The bit that we are nervous about is having to wait without any sort of indication from the department in relation to any potential ongoing funding, which would enable us to start to consider how we move things forward from the strong place that we are now. Teresa mentioned that we'd received a ministerial letter that is positive in tone, but doesn't give us any direct assurances other than to say, wait until the budget announcements on the 30th of October. So whenever we're engaged with our colleagues from the DfE, we are asking the question, are we going to continue to see that grant funding, whether it's in the same shape or whether it comes in an alternate form? They're fairly tight-lipped about it at the moment, and I'm assuming we will hear more from October 30th. But regardless of that, like I say, I'm quietly confident that we are in a position where we'll be able to sustain much, if not all, of the current levels of activity.
Any other questions?
Chairman, can I just say, to endorse what's been said in this room tonight, it is essential that we keep the family hubs going. They play a great importance to the young people of this borough, and we should fight together unanimously to make certain we retain them. I visited all 5, and I've never seen so many happy staff in all my life, and the dedication they've got and what they actually do, the time of their own and the work time as well, and what they contribute to society is second to none. I can only praise them up, which each and every one of them. I don't think they went out the way just to please me, because I made other inquiries, and I know, for example, they treat everyone else the same. But it's essential that we do maintain this. It's one of the finest things we've got going for us in Dudley at the present moment. And to see the work which is taking place, if you look at the child-friendly Dudley, that's from the health side of it, and that's our side, how we produce and what we do. So, Mr. Chairman, really speaking, we do really need to give full support to maintain this. It has its benefits, and the main benefit is prevention. And it prevents a lot of things that this authority would have to find money for if we hadn't got that facility. And I'll close at that. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, and I think it'll be noted as well. I can second the fact that when I went to the hub myself, that I saw very positive outcomes as well. Any other comments? No? I'll end on the fact that I know that you have a DFE visit on the 25th of September. Oh, you had it today? Okay. Has it? Okay, fair enough. So I'm glad that that went well then. I thought we were referring to a different visit, and so that's good to know. Right, but thank you for your time as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is a report of regulatory oversight and plans for children's services, and I believe that is Nicola Hale.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Nicola Hale. I'm the Acting Service Director for Social Care. It's not near enough, or I'm not loud enough, one or the other. Okay. So I've just got some slides to just help kind of take you through the report as well. And the focus of the report really is to explain the impacts, 1 year and a bit on since our redesign in the directorate. And of course, that coincided with the launch of family safeguarding. So as I said, phase 1 of the children's services redesign was on the 10th of July, followed with the stage 2, which was more so sales area of the directorate on the 4th of December. And the redesign, as you will remember, was both around improving the structural and reporting arrangements for all of our different services in the directorate, but also to formally implement the model of family safeguarding. And this is a tried and tested model that was first started in Hertfordshire, and we were the 19th local authority to implement the model. We know it has proven results with positive impacts for children, most importantly, but also it's a cost-effective value-based model, and also we know it also improves the workforce retention and attracts workforce as well. And that graph just kind of picks out a few examples, and I'll get into more detail through the slides, but part of our redesign and the implementation of the model was to remove the separate assessment teams in social care. So that's allowed social workers, as they first meet with a family, to see that journey through with a child and family until conclusion of that work. Also, we took the opportunity, and we're the first local authority to do this, to replicate the multi-agency model of family safeguarding across our work with older children, with the adolescent safeguarding team. So that really strengthens our focus on children who are experiencing harm outside of the home, and the work with the older children there. And also the redesign brought the Children with Disabilities team and the SEND service under one head of service, and that's definitely improved that kind of line of sight for all of our children with additional needs. So just to take you through our kind of regulatory oversight of the Directorate. Thank you. So our last ILACS full inspection of children's services was in 2022, and the findings from that inspection were that we were required to require an improvement to be good. And there were a number of areas for improvement, but in summary, really, it was evident that the impact of workforce turnover was impacting on our work of consistency of practice throughout the child's journey. So that improved planning, assessments, quality of supervision and management oversight as well. And of course, regulatory oversight also includes other areas of the Directorate like youth justice and SEND. And we know that we're continuing to monitor the accelerated progress plan in SEND as well, but are showing improvements. So the last time we met with Ofsted, they came to do a focus visit in February this year, and that was focused on decision making and placements for our older children in care, and the report was published in May this year. So overall, the report was really positive, particularly about how we work with our children and families, and our overarching positive statements that we know our children really well, that we have embedded that relational approach to all of our work, and they could see that through everything they looked at and everyone they spoke with. But there were some areas for improvement, particularly around our identification and then assessment and response to children who are 16 and 17 and present as homeless. There were some challenges around the frequency of supervision, but certainly the quality was deemed to be high quality supervision when it is taking place. And then some more kind of learning around the consistency of permanence planning for all of our children in care. And I guess, the point that we're making there, that it's not just when children first come into our care, but our line of sight throughout the child's journey, which we've been working really hard to have an approach to. So all of the actions and recommendations across the ILACS and the last focus visit are included in our service plans throughout the Directorate for this year. And there was certainly an evidence of the positive impact of having dedicated service managers for certain cohorts of children, like our care experienced children in care and adolescent safeguarding. It's allowing that grip of line of sight. So I'll just get into some detail now about the impact that we can see from all of that work through the redesign and the launch of Family Safeguarding 2. We've just heard Teresa articulate really well about the benefit of the launch of the family hubs and the approach, and we know that children are more readily accessing support in their community. We also brought our targeted early help intervention into the social care reporting line, which means that there's a much more timely response through the work with the front door, that our family group conferencing service is located in social care, and that's helped enable prevention of children coming into care, but also reunification from children who are in our care to return to their family network. And we really, throughout a child's journey, want to encourage families developing their own solutions, to come up with their own plans through their own network, and that's been much more streamlined through the structure. Through the removal of the assessment team, it's had a positive impact on both the quality and the timeliness of our assessment of children and families. So we're not kind of having children and families going through assessments where we result in no further action, putting them through a process that wasn't necessary, because we're much quicker to identify opportunities in early help spaces. And we have already addressed work around one of the actions from the focus visit around our homeless 16 and 17-year-olds. We have a joint assessment with housing live in our recording system, which evidences better the work that we were already doing in terms of our timely response. And just in terms of the kind of impact on rates, because of course we want to see less children with statutory intervention because they've benefited from the early help approach. So our child protection rate has fluctuated but has stabilised at a lower rate of 35 per 10k. And our children in care rate, so the numbers of children in care continue to reduce over time. And I think as of today, we have 560 children in our care, and a year ago it was around 584. And through the year as well, children subject to child protection plans is reducing. So last year it was around 627, and it's about 100 less, 520 in the last year. So we're seeing the impact of that. As I say, we're really focused on children securing permanence earlier. So in some cases, children aren't able to remain in their families because it wouldn't be safe to do so. And so when young children we identify needing plans of adoption, we're concluding more and more quickly. So we're also progressing our court work much quicker so that permanence plans are in place more timely for our children. And then just another impact at the other end of that spectrum, when we've asked our care experienced young adults how they feel about the service and the support that they're receiving. And there were some really positive comments about how they feel that they have somebody in their life who they will listen to them and encourage them to succeed. And with that dedicated service manager for our care experienced young people, there's been further developments to increase that offer, such as the launch of a drop-in centre for them, a guide about how they can access their records, which was actually co-produced with our young people, and their electronic health passport that they receive when they become adults, so that they can have a record of their childhood health oversight. We continue to work to increase our recruitment of internal foster carers and also to formally match children who are with foster carers in a stable arrangement. And we've already seen an increase on the previous financial year. So last year we had 7 internal foster carers recruited, and this year we've already got 12 in assessment and 3 that are due for approval. And we're also increasing the timeliness of our pathway plans for supporting children to transition to adulthood. And you can see there the increase in performance since the previous year. So as you can see, a lot of the kind of impacts is around working more effectively, more timely with our children and families. And these are just some examples of how we can evidence that we're achieving that. We do still have some challenges, particularly around our timely arrangement of initial child protection conferences, but it is on an upward trajectory, and we can see month on month that progress is being made. As you can see there in the graph, our timeliness of assessments that we are required to complete within 45 days is much nearer that target, and actually our average assessment completion is now 38 days. Some other impacts that has helped kind of timely conclusion of proceedings and achievement of permanence plans includes our parent assess training. So that's assessments of parents who have learning difficulties. So previously that would need to be outsourced as an external assessment, but we invested in training our own staff who are also now able to train other staff, so that there's a sufficiency to that model. And we're already seeing a kind of financial benefit to that because, of course, independent assessments are costly, but also it's much better for families to work with the social worker that they already know, and it means that they're concluded much quicker. The arrangements under the redesign and how we kind of work differently through a child's journey and within the directorate has really been noticeable in how we also work with our partner agencies. So in Dudley, we have a practice model of restorative practice, which underpins our value base about how we work with children and families and how we work with each other as colleagues as well. I think it's really positive that our schools have identified that that's a good model to follow, and we've been able to support them to be trained in that model through the Education Safeguarding Service. And one real evidence of impact is that they regularly utilise solution circles led by the lead for education safeguarding, which also helps early identification of support for families, and also reduces our professional challenges where schools might be concerned that social care aren't taking the right action. And we can see that we're resolving much more of those conversations at an informal level. The redesign also took the opportunity to bring our emotional wellbeing practitioners into the Through Care service, so they're working alongside social workers supporting our children, giving timely access to children who need emotional support, but also increasing our placement stability for children who are in our care as well, because they'll support foster carers and special guardians too. Another benefit of the redesign was bringing our participation officers into the Centre for Professional Practice, which works across the directorate. So the officers were based in different places really through the directorate, and not kind of coordinated in their approach to work. We're already seeing some brilliant examples of the work that they've done, such as co-designing questions when we're recruiting foster carers with our children, and developing a top tips guide for foster carers too. This has also helped us reinstate our total respect training with our staff and young people. So they're being trained as trainers as well. And we'll be delivering, in fact, I think some training's happened today, hasn't it? Delivering training to our staff now. And we also have the 4 cornerstones participation and co-production approach, which has been deployed through the SEND service. As I said at the start, the family safeguarding model is known to have a positive impact on recruitment and retention. And more than that, we took the opportunity in the redesign to establish advanced practitioner social work roles in every social work team. So this allows a progression route for social workers who might not want to move into management roles, but want to be recognised for their experience and expertise. We allowed our internal staff, or invited them to apply for those roles to start off with on a kind of ring fence basis, and then we have continued to recruit externally as well, and most are now filled permanently. Through the redesign, we created a number of service manager vacancies, and so again we wanted to give the opportunity for our internal staff to be ready to apply for those roles when they were advertised. So we ran a summer programme for our team managers who were aspiring to be service managers, and that had a successful output. So we had 3 internal applicants who were appointed, and they're all permanently recruited too now. We continue to attract our newly qualified social workers in the cohort, and when we have been at our annual recruitment fair in Birmingham, where lots of local authorities are there competing for the qualifying social workers to join their local authority, certainly there was a buzz around the Dudley table, because we were able to share, you know, our new model around family safeguarding, adolescent safeguarding, and also really communicated and articulated our kind of commitment to child-friendly Dudley, which was certainly attractive, and we've filled all of those vacancies. They've been joining us through the summer, and a few more just to come now in the autumn. All of our permanent recruitment across the directorate now includes a children's panel interview. Again, this demonstrates our commitment and our value base to co-production, and we've been able to achieve that through the work of the participation team across the directorate and with our managers. And we also have a good career development offer through our career progression panel to senior social work positions, and that's prior to them to the advanced practitioner level. We also were interested in meeting with people who reached their 2-year anniversary of working in Dudley, who are qualified social workers, to just test out really what their experience had been and what was keeping them with us. So we've been having staying in Dudley conversations that myself in my substantive proposed and Cornelia have been holding, inviting people to join. And that's been really interesting to learn from their feedback. And we continue to have an annual staff awards ceremony. So, and I suppose this is just indicative of the success of the redesign, that just a few months after the redesign, actually, we had 168 nominations. And if you think that lots of teams and colleagues were reconfigured in that redesign, it didn't prevent anybody shouting about successes, which was great. So just a bit more on our recruitment. So our vacant social work posts has reduced. In fact, it's lower than that. I think it's 4.5% today. check regularly. And our turnover rate is also reducing, as well as our reliance on agency social workers. That, of course, has meant that our average caseload for social workers has reduced as well. We have met our target at times. Of course, there's always fluctuation, dependent on the demand and the number of workers that we've got in. But some services are under target and some are just about meeting the target. We've also reduced our sickness absence rate as well for social workers, which, you know, is always indicative of a satisfied and content workforce. And our supervision for children, our child level supervision with social workers and team managers is vastly improved since this time last year. Of course, we continue to check that all of this is having an impact on our overall quality of practice, and the Centre for Professional Practice holds the reins on our quality assurance framework across the directorate. Here I'm talking really about the monthly audits of our social care work, our children with social workers. We were really pleased to see that we had 1 month earlier in the year where we had no inadequate graded audits, which was great to see. And we are starting to see outstanding gradings issued on our work as well. We moved our target for our rolling outcomes to meet 50% graded good or outstanding, and in July it was 58%. So it just shows that we're starting to make that traction. And we've moved away now from the head of service oversight on our inadequate graded to our requires improvements. That evidence is where we are in our journey. We're seeing certain elements of practice which are further ahead, such as voice of the child and quality of management oversight. It's always a challenge around quality of planning and assessments, but we are seeing improvements and we're getting more and more good examples to help others to learn from that. And this is just a slide really to show particularly the impact of family safeguarding model. So one of the measures of success is which that Hertfordshire would ask every local authority to look at who've implemented family safeguarding is the amount of time that we're working with children or that children remain in our care. So you can just see the difference there, that the reduction of time that children are remaining in our care, and also the movement over time from September 22 to March this year, the number of children subject to child and need plans, child protection plans, and children in our care as well. And then there's just a note there really about the financial impact of family safeguarding as well. So we have already met the first point of the target in terms of savings, and we're estimated to be achieving the next stage of the target as we go through, and may actually reach that target sooner than anticipated. These slides just kind of provide some information about the phase 2 impact in Sales area and SEND. So again, a kind of reduction in children with education healthcare plans, and the more kind of timely progress of assessments. And then I don't know if Sal wants to say any more about that.
Yeah, happily come in, Nicola. So in terms of the phase 2 redesign, which looked at education SEND and family solutions, you've already heard about the family hubs work and what's happening in terms of family solutions. We also made changes to our SEND arrangements, brought in our children with disabilities team. And colleagues will be very, very well aware of some of the ongoing pressures within the SEND world nationally as well as locally. But what we've seen through some of the changes that we're making is that the rate of pressure increase in terms of things like the rate of numbers of education, health and care plans in Dudley is much slower than that of our comparators and what's happening nationally. And that's indicative of actually us being able to identify and meet needs earlier without requiring progression to an education, health and care plan. Clearly, when those plans are required, we continue to progress those. But actually, the changes that we're making in our system and the changes that we've made as a result of that, of the phase 2 redesign, is starting to have that real impact on that rate of increase in terms of education, health and care plans. So there's a really, really positive picture emerging there. That's not to say that in Dudley we're not subject to similar pressures that are happening elsewhere across the country as well. And then the final slide, or the final part of the trilogy that makes up my area of children's services, is education. And one of the things that following the report that Martin brought at the last meeting, I just wanted to share with members the impact of some of the changes that we've made in terms of our school improvement services and how they are also supporting our system and supporting our schools. We're now in a position where we can confidently say really, really well that over the last 12 months, there's been further school inspections, and now 90% of local authority maintained schools are either good or outstanding. A very similar level there in terms of our academy schools that are 80% of good or outstanding. In terms of our secondary, 100% of our local authority maintained schools are good or outstanding, and again positive that 80% of our academies are also. When we look at our special and AP, we have one school, one special school, local authority special school, that requires improvement. The others are good or outstanding, and the one academy that we have, special school, is also good and a good school. In terms of the special AP one that requires improvement, it's something that we were aware of and had been working with that setting. We just didn't have enough time to turn it around before our inspectorate came in, and we've been supporting that school through a whole range of things, including some leadership changes there as well. So we're confident that we're also making improvement in those areas as well. So in terms of the quality of education for our children, we're really confident that we are continuing to improve, and that our schools are delivering a really, really good outcome for the vast majority of our children in Dudley. So hopefully that builds on, like I say, the report that members received at the last select committee, and just gives you a flavour of some of the other impacts that's happened as a result of our redesign work.
Perfect, and thank you both for that comprehensive report. I think there's a lot of detail that's gone into that and a lot of time, so thank you for that. I'll open it up to the floor again if there's any questions, Councillor.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I suspect most people would like to say, well done on what you've done so far for the improvements that you've made, and to make the child and the child's voice the centre of things. I think that's a fantastic thing, isn't it? And more power to it. On the recommendations, I noticed one of them was note that further sector-led improvement arrangements are in place with Hertfordshire for a further programme of work through 24-25, specifically around the work for unification of children and functions within the front door. Can you say a little bit more about that? How practically do you work with Hertfordshire?
Yeah, thank you. So Hertfordshire supported us, of course, with the implementation of family safeguarding, but we've retain that relationship, to look at other areas of our kind of business and also through the child's journey. So they're coming back for a further programme of work through October to test out some of the work that we're doing through family safeguarding. But previous to that, they've also helped us deliver some workshops on reunification. So it's that I call it kind of later permanent. So children who are in our care but may well have the opportunity now, because things have changed in their family or their wider family, to be able to return home. So that's been a really valuable piece of work, and we want to continue to build on that to, you know, see the impact as well. And they're also coming to look at the work of the front door. There's been a lot of activity to redesign the front door, as you'll be aware of, which started pre the redesign really, but to kind of realise the impact of how we're working with our partner agencies, how we're helping our partners to understand the difference between the kind of earliest help in the Family Hub offer and then the targeted early help offer, which sits under the front door arrangements in social care. So that's the extension of that work.
Thank you.
Richard?
First of all, to reiterate that, well done. They were quite significant impact statements, I thought, from your own self-evaluation, which was fantastic. Correct me if I'm wrong, we were sold division around about July 2023. Absolutely, and we wished you good luck for those people who are in the room. So really well done. Impact statements, fantastic. So if we were to lift the bonnet now and look underneath the impact statements, which are fantastic, none of us want to work with a local authority that's got a little RI next to it. Okay, how close do you think, because it's 2022, how close do you think the visit is? Because it should be between 18 and 24 months. And when we lift the bonnet, are you confident? Because those impact statements suggest that you should be.
So, you know, we may have a further focus visit before the next full ILACS inspection or a joint targeted area inspection. So, you know, we'll expect another visit, you know, within the year. The last focus visit that we had in February is certainly encouraging, but of course, as the nature of it, they're looking at one area of the service, which was our children in care. They weren't only looking though at the through care service, they also looked at children in our adolescence safeguarding service, because some of those children are in our care, and also our disabilities service, as well as they did meet with some practitioners and looked at some children in the family safeguarding service. The challenge is always around the consistency, and that's what messages we've had through our ILACs and through the focus visit, that of course any good local authority, it is consistent throughout rather than pockets of good practice. So we've certainly got an excellent platform to build on, and all of the kind of foundations are there. We believe in our structure, and we're starting to see that month on month in terms of the increase through our own quality assurance activity, and the kind of triangulation through all our other avenues of quality assurance, such as getting feedback from children and families, you know, looking at our kind of responses through formal complaints, and our performance data as well. So we're encouraged is what I'd say.
Are you happy with that response? Any other questions?
Just to build on that one, really, again, echoing a really positive move forward. You alluded to paragraph 2 on page 40, the challenges. Can you lift the bonnet there for us? And what are the challenges with the child protection conferences?
Yeah, so the challenges there around the timeliness of arranging our child protection conferences. So we know that the quality of them is good. We get positive feedback from our partner agencies, from families, parents, when they attend their conferences, and also we're increasing the number of children whose voice is present in the conference. Some of the challenges is around the kind of work during the child protection investigation, the child protection inquiry, and then making the decision that a multi-agency conference is needed. We understand where that is needing more work, and we're actively working as a senior management team across the Child Protection Conferencing Service and our service managers in family safeguarding and adolescent safeguarding. And we are seeing an improvement month on month because it's a rolling number. It'll take a while to kind of reach that target, but we're nearing it now.
Councillor Khan?
Yeah, hi. So it's really great that the ECHP timeline has kind of come down because there's quite a lot of children out there, and if they haven't got the ECHP in place, they can't get the education. So I'm really happy about that. And my question is, over the 6 weeks holiday, I've had a few parents from my ward email me saying that they were still waiting for confirmation of allocation of a school for their child. So the confirmation came really late in August or early September. I don't know how it works behind the scenes, but could you explain why it was that late, or can that be improved so the parents are not stressing themselves out over, getting to the new school term?
Okay, so I'll try and respond to that one for you, Councillor. So in terms of admissions, we have admissions arrangements in place for both primary and secondary admissions. Parents will apply for school places. They'll put forward a number of options or preferred options. And what we do through our admissions service is that, in essence, we administer the admissions criteria for each school. So each school will set its rules, and what we do then is we administer those rules on behalf of the schools in order to try and match the parental preferences with the school's criterias in order to then be able to place children onto those school roles. And we do that for primary and secondary. We also deliver that for many of our academy schools, not all, but many of our academy schools also buy into our service to deliver that. When we then start to work around children with SEND and school placements, it becomes a little bit more complex in as much as we then have to consult with schools about the nature of meeting those child's needs. To make sure that actually those schools can meet children's needs, because we don't want to be placing children into school in order to set them up to fail if the school cannot meet those needs. And sometimes it's also about that balance between the school that can meet needs versus the school that a parent may particularly want. And there are all sorts of reasons and rationales why parents might want specific schools, even though other schools within the borough or closer to them can also meet their needs. And so working through that can take a lot more time in order to get those responses back from school consults and also that engagement with parents, which unfortunately does mean that there are some cases where it's relatively late in the day when parents will finally have confirmation of the school that their child will be going to. So it's because of the more complex nature of identifying the school and the school placement in those instances, rather than our normal school admissions procedures. But we do everything that we can to try and expedite that as early and as quickly as is possible.
With that?
Yeah, just basically, the parents were saying that, Dudley Education is not responding back, and they're basically saying, is a child going to get a place or not? So is there any way you can just reassure the parents that you are working and trying to deal with finding them a place in the school? Just to reassure them, basically, because...
Absolutely. And if you want to share with me the details of those particular parents that have made contact with you, then I can make sure that our SEND team makes contact with them directly in order to respond to any concerns that they may have.
Thank you. And I think any individual cases will be discussed outside the committee anyway.
I haven't done this very often, but I'd just like to offer some support to the local authority on that point. So I've been in this local authority for a long time, and I would say that I can't comment on those particular cases, but the local authority previously had a very bad habit of dropping in consultations around about the 16th, 17th of July, just before the summer holidays. And head teachers, quite rightly, were probably going off on their holidays 2 or 3 days later. And there was always a deadline set during the summer holidays. And some head teachers, including myself, refused to respond to that consultation because those EHCPs had been sat on a desk and someone decided, whoever the officer was, I need to clear my desk before we break up, and pass the problem on to somewhere else. And I must say, in the last 2 years, that has decreased significantly. So things are improving. There's always going to be 1 or 2 cases, but it was a regular thing that happened. So if it's only 3 or 4, that's success, because it used to be a lot more.
Any other comments? I suppose it's my turn then. So on page 28, where you've got the KPMs and you've identified quite well there some of the positive trends, can you outline any KPMs that do not show a positive trend or not quite where you want them to be?
Yeah, so as I say, we continue to work on our kind of timeliness of conclusion of work with our family. So some of that is, although we're improving the assessment timeliness, we obviously want to do better. We want to see more families being supported in early help rather than coming through to social work assessment. And you know, we still want to reduce the number of children in our system in terms of our average caseload, and that's partly around that work of having the right children in the right part of the service offer. So yeah, there is always more to do, definitely, and you know, we keep an eye on all of those challenges on a monthly basis.
And one other point from me. So on page 37, where you referred to the Ofsted reporting, it says supervision is of a high quality but does not always occur at the required frequency. Can you tell us what the required frequency is and how far are we away from that?
Yeah, so we're improving the target. I think I made a note of around kind of more than 80% of our child level supervision is now happening at the required frequency. So we expect every child to have management oversight supervision every 8 weeks. Some of the challenges in the inspection was that social workers could not articulate you know, the frequency because they have their own supervision every month as a professional supervision. So there's a difference then between how often children are overseen. And also some of the feedback through the Ofsted inspection is that you'd expect a child where there's additional challenges or they're going through some disruption to have more than the minimum level of supervision in place. And we know that oversight happens. I think it's more of a challenge about how we've been recording that so that it's evidenced on the child's file.
So what are we doing about that then?
So exactly that. So we're making sure that team managers are understanding that, you know, when they're having in-depth conversations with a practitioner about a child who might be in crisis, that they're recording that, you know, in another part of the child's file so that it's much more clearly evidenced. And we've done a lot of work with our managers and our practitioners to understand our refreshed supervision policy as well, which outlines the frequency amongst other things.
And then fast forward into page 41, where we're talking about the impact of collaborative working. You've mentioned that 75% of the schools in Dudley have been trained in restorative practice by the Education Safeguarding Service. The remaining 25%, is it that they have done their own version, or what's the reason that they haven't?
Yeah, there'll be all kinds of reasons. We know that all of our schools are kind of signed up to a trauma-informed, attachment-aware approach, and the restorative practice model builds on that. So it is an optional kind of training that we're inviting our partnership and our schools to kind of understand more about our approach in social care and in the Children's Directorate. So it's part of the offer through the training service that we can go into schools and develop. And it might be that schools have access to training independently elsewhere, but we can quantify that.
So can we action point where we find out why
Yeah.
they haven't,
To get some feedback.
and get some feedback as to the reasons that they haven't.
Yeah.
Any other questions from any of the members? No, and if I can echo the same comment as everyone else, there's very clear positive work going on here, and we can strongly see the impact of that. So thank you for your leadership on that as well. Next item on the agenda is the item number 8, the IRO annual report, and I believe Cornelia Medley is. Cornelia.
Yeah. Yeah, please.
While I was just setting that up, I'll also feel free to have the biscuits and chocolates. They are scattered around.
Okay, so this is the annual report from the service that conducts annual statutory reviews for children in our care. And it's a statutory report providing you some information about the profile of the children who've been in our care in the last year, and also the performance of the service carrying out its duties. And it's recommended that the report inform strategic planning for children and young people in care, and that it provides an opportunity for you to hold the safeguarding service to account in the delivery of their services to children and young people in our care. So there's quite detailed statutory guidance for IROs and local authorities carrying out these duties in relation to oversight of children and young people in our care. And so the IRO conducts a review at a defined interval of the child's care plan and the progress of the care plan. But they've also, since 2008, had a strengthened role in more generally having oversight of the way that the local authority is meeting individual child's needs, and also kind of look at the population of children in care. And this report brings some of that oversight together. It's a report on the financial year from April 23 to March this year. One of the roles of the IRO is to ensure that children themselves are able to meaningfully participate in developing and reviewing their care plan, and they're also required to make sure that the appropriate assessments have been done, and that the local authority understands the children's needs, and that that the plan has been adequately tailored to the needs of the individual children. So it's a sort of a comprehensive oversight role that they undertake. It's the service manager for the safeguarding and review team who supervises the IROs who produces this annual report, and we're required to publish it as a public document. So it brings together information about some of the quality assurance activity that's been taken, that the team carries on looking at their own work, as well as the sort of overview of the services that are provided to children in our care. So starting with some information about the team, and then I'll move on to talk about the children in care, and then go through some of the performance information. We have a very stable team of IROs in Dudley, which means there's a lot of children in care benefit from having the same IRO allocated to them for much of their period in care, and they become quite important adults in the child's life. We've got a good diversity in the team, which we regard as beneficial, because the children, our children, have a diverse, profiles themselves, and it's important that we're able to have to reflect that in the team, and to be able to support us to have oversight of the children in a culturally sensitive and informed way. Children are allocated an IRO really quickly after coming into care because we hold the first review 28 days after they come into care. So the IRO will chair the review and they'll be looking to make sure that the care plan for the child is based on a suitable assessment and that the child's needs have been understood. They'll want to know that the child is not just being listened to, but that they understand they're being listened to. And there's a range of ways that the IROs seek to engage children in the reviews. And I'll come on to a little bit of information about how that's happened over the year. And then they have a particular responsibility as well to look at the progress of reviews and ensuring that we're making permanence plans for children and that that's happening early on in the care planning process. Statutory reviews are carried out for children who are in care under a range of different legal frameworks. So that includes children who are on care orders or interim care orders to the local authority, and children who are in Section 20 voluntary accommodation. We also have children with disabilities who have short breaks, and they will have reviews from an IRO as well. And then finally, when children and young people are remanded to custody, they become looked after by the local authority, and we conduct reviews of those children as well, and those reviews will take place in their place of custody. So the oversight role is looking very much at the local authority's role as a corporate parent, so thinking about whether we're doing what a reasonable parent would do for each child based on their individual circumstances. And when there are concerns about when the IRO has concerns about an aspect of the care plan, there are some formal ways in which they will escalate that back to the team. And there's some information about that further on in the report as well. But it's also important that they recognise good practice and things that are going well. And so there's also a process for providing feedback and compliments back to the team when the work is being done well. So it's a holistic scrutiny. So I'm going to move on now and share just a bit of information about the children that we've had in our care this year. So during the year, there were at various times in the year, there have been 723 children who were allocated an IRO in the team. Which children are in that group obviously changes over the year. And at the year end, there were 574 children in our care. Figure's fallen a little bit since the end of March. It's a little lower today. But you can see it had fallen again since the end of March in the previous year. So we do have a sort of a fairly consistent downward trajectory at the moment of children in our care. And most of the children in our care are subject to the oversight of the court. So we're in proceedings and they may be on an interim order or a full care order has been made. This chart shows that profile. So the first bar is for children who are on interim care orders. So that the court proceedings are underway for those children. The tall line in the middle is children for whom a full care order has been made. The proceedings are concluded, and the children are in our care. And then the third bar is children who are on a care order and a placement order has been granted, which means that we're seeking to match them with adopters. And then the final small group is children in Section 20 accommodation, which is voluntary care. Some of those children are unaccompanied asylum seeking children who will always be Section 20. And then the remainder of those are children whose parents have agreed for them to be in accommodation. And in most of those cases, we're still working for a plan that would enable them to live safely with their parents or another member of the family. We've got some information here showing the ethnic profile of children in our care compared with the wider population of children in Dudley. So the writing's very small. So if I just tell you that from left to right, the columns are Asian, Black, mixed, other and white for both charts. So the profiles broadly similar. We have a slightly larger group of children who would be described as mixed parentage in our care, and a slightly smaller group of Asian children. I think we understand that to reflect other demographic features of the children other than their ethnicity in the main. So children leave our care throughout the year for a range of reasons, and this pie chart is showing what the reasons are. So the largest group, which is showing as a sort of rusty brown colour on the screen up there, is children who've returned home to their families. And then the next largest group, which is the grey wedge, is children who've reached 18 and have left our care, but they've been able to remain in what was previously their foster home under a staying put arrangement. And then the next biggest group, which is a sort of, they look different on my computer from up there, which is a bit confusing, but a sort of a lighter brown wedge. Those are children who've left care to go on a special guardianship order, which will be with people who are connected to them in some way. And then down at the bottom, we've got a darkish blue purple, are 18-year-olds moving into independent living. And then the smaller groups of children are adoption and children who reach 18 but transfer into adult services because they're receiving Care Act services. A small number who go into custody. So as I explained, if children are remanded to custody, they come into care. If they're subsequently sentenced, that will be a pathway for them to leave our care. And then we've got yellow and blue down on the bottom left, roughly the same amount, about 5% for each. Child arrangement orders, which is another a private law order to other members of the children's family, usually, and yellow is other reason. I'm going to move on and talk about the performance of the actual safeguarding and review service now. So our data shows that 79.1% of our reviews are being held in time. We have a target of 95%. Some of those are late reviews, and the main reasons for that are highlighted underneath. I'll come on to that. Some of them are not quite late reviews, and it's to do with restrictions in the way we've been able to report up till now. The IRO has 20 days to complete holding the review, which might be more than one meeting, and then write it up and share the write up with the team manager. And so we're modifying the way that we report to allow that 20 days. So some of these reviews which are shown as out of time were still within that 20-day time period when the report was run. However, some were late. And the main reasons for reviews being late were that social worker wasn't available at short notice. That would be staff sickness or in the main, but it might also be because there was a change of social worker and the new social worker wasn't available. And then because some of the paperwork was incomplete, or because the IRO wasn't available on 4 reviews, and that will have been a last minute unavailability wherever possible. Obviously, absent social workers or IROs are covered by a colleague. So the IROs are really creative, and the social workers together, they work really hard to ensure that children are able to participate in their review in some way. And there are a range of ways that they can do it. So the biggest group of children on that pie chart, 39%, are children who attended and spoke for themselves. And the next biggest group at 37% are children who didn't attend, but they sent their views to be represented by someone on their behalf. 2% of them briefed a formal advocate, and then a small number of them attended with an advocate, and the advocate spoke for them. We had a child who attended and gave their views non-verbally, and we had another child who attended and who, sorry, we had one child who didn't attend and didn't send views. So the majority of children are contributing in a meaningful way. I mean, I think you know, Ofsted could see that actually in the focus visit. It was really positive about the reflection of children's views and the capacity that they were given to be able to express those and shape the plan. So that's what we're really proud of. There are two sort of formal processes then after the review for the IRO to raise issues that they aren't happy about, but also to feedback compliments to the team. So they will routinely fill in a quality assurance report after every review that goes to the team manager, providing feedback. But there's a process for raising more serious concerns with the dispute resolution process. We've had a small drop off in the number this year, and we think that's because the increased rigour that we had in the previous year in the way that they were followed through has sort of reduced the number that need to be raised. So, and I've given the top 4 reasons for dispute resolutions being raised there. So 49 of them were about assessments or referrals that had been agreed in the previous review not happening in the timescale, and then some of them were about preparation for the meeting being poor, or other aspects of poor paperwork. But I think it's important that there's some feedback every time. So you know, even when just everything's gone smoothly and it's all good, the team manager gets that feedback. In addition to chairing the formal reviews, the IRO has other ways of keeping oversight of the progress for children, and that includes keeping in touch with children and visiting them. And they also will dip into the child's record and see what's going on and make contact with the team if they're concerned that they can see, you know, that there appears to be drift. In the period since lockdown ended, and we've gone back to face-to-face working, more and more of those visits are happening in person in the place where the child is living, and you can see there's a big increase this year on the number of extra face-to-face visits to children and young people that IROs were able to conduct. This is some information about just the ways that the IROs seek to engage with children at the beginning of their work, so that the children develop some rapport and will trust with them. So they all have a card with some information about themselves that they give to the child, and make or send to the child to make sure that the child knows who they are before their first review. So that's really early on. First review is 28 days into their coming into care, and then having potentially maintained contact with children through you know, a long and significant periods of their childhood. They've done quite a lot of thinking about making sure that the endings are given as much importance really as the beginnings. And so they now write a letter to all the children that they've been working with at the end, where they sort of reflect some of the experiences and times that they've had together, remind them about some of their sort of, you know, strengths and things that they're good at, and wish them well for life after care, or life with a different IRO. So the final bit is a bit of information about what we're planning to do then in this year. Some of this is obviously already underway. So we have some practice standards or practice guidance for the way that social workers and IROs will prepare for children in care reviews and conduct them, and they're in review at the moment. In the redesign, the IRO team and the CP team were split. In a lot of local authorities, they're combined roles. So the service managers together are continually working on embedding the practice of the separate services. That was one of the objectives, was that we would, with each of the roles being specialists, they would be able to be more consistent in the way that the role is carried out. As sort of in line with the rest of children's services, we're continually looking at ways that we can improve the way that we co-produce our work with the children who are working with the service. One aspect of that is the way that we get feedback. So there's feedback given to all the participants in a review after every review. Professionals frequently fill it in, parents and children less so. So the team are working on different ways of getting feedback that families might be more able to engage with. And then the final piece of work is in relation to the causes of reviews being late. So one of the ones I mentioned, for example, was about a change of social worker. So we've now written into our transfer policy that social workers shouldn't be changed shortly before a review, so that we don't have that moment of change that results in a delay. And that's the end of the presentation, so I can take questions.
Thank you very much for that. I'll open it up to the floor again first. Councillor Ridley.
Thank you. It's a very positive report, as was last year, so I can say you're continuing to improve. But my concern is that the examples of quotes from children are over 11, and I've raised this before. We have younger children. How do they, what sort of input do they have into these reviews? Because I value the voice of the child, and those that of us involved in primary schools know that the Children's Council can be quite a powerful voice that it wants to be, and we've often take their views when interviewing staff, particularly head teachers, and often their views are very much the same as ours. So just how do you get the younger children into this?
That's a really interesting comment, and that might be the report was long and we needed to edit it, and it might be that in the editing we accidentally skewed the sample of feedback. We expect all children over 4 to be actively involved in their review, and obviously there are some ways in which some children under 4 can participate as well, but our expectation is that we can see the way that they've been engaged, and we would they may be less likely to come to the meeting, but they absolutely can meet with the IRO, meet with their social worker, and share their views, or put them on a picture, or you know. So yes, we do.
Thank you for that. Are there any other comments from the members? Richard.
Thank you for your presentation. Again, as the lady just said, very, very positive. Couple of questions though, because slight contradiction in what we heard earlier this evening in terms of the progress that's been made with the family safeguarding, etc. You know, you talked about social workers. You mentioned about sickness and absence, stability of the social worker, poor prep for meetings. Are you still dealing with a legacy of old prior to the new vision, or are you, you know, I described about lifting the bonnet. Is that the reality? Because you've had really positive, not yourself, but you've had really positive figures put upon that board today about absence going down, etc., etc. Recruitment really successful, but the reality is it different for you in your little part?
So in terms of late reviews, there are some that are late, but we have worked out how we need to redesign the report to make that more accurate. When we reran data on for the early part of this year, later on, so that the write-ups were finished, actually it was about 90% that were on time, and sometimes they're late for reasons that really can't be helped. You don't expect 100%. Yes.
Replicating what we're seeing, the positive in terms of less absence, so it's not going to impact on you that much, and preparation can be better. Staying social workers doing that, doing the case, etc.
I think so. Yes, I think so. Our target is close to 100%, but not 100%, and that's the right place for it to be. Yes, I think it will be better next year. There's more consistency with the social workers, and you're right to point out some of the sort of historical you know, if the allocated social worker changes, it's difficult to keep things in time, and there is much reduced turnover of social workers now.
Thank you. Just to add to that, obviously, Cornelia's covered that. 560 young people who have at least 2 reviews a year. Some will have more than that, and the detail in here is of just 25 late reviews, and the reason for that. So it's important that we share it. It's important that you're assured there's a good line of sight on why that might be, and then the work in place to cover that. So I just wanted to kind of reflect the total numbers of reviews that happen in a year.
Can I just come in on that? So on page 60, one of the reasons you've listed the 3 main reasons for reviews not being held within the timescales.
Yes.
The second point you raise is a lack of paperwork.
Yeah.
Now that seems quite a poor reason to me for something not being done. Surely the paperwork should have been done. So why and who is it that hasn't done the paperwork?
So I would agree that that's an avoidable reason for a review being late, and that's why it's raised as a dispute resolution. I think we've got the mechanism in place for providing the feedback, and we've got the management oversight in place for challenging the difficulties, and I would expect to see that improving.
So we'll have 0 this time next year?
I think we'd like to be really close to 0.
Any other questions from any of the members? Councillor Khan?
Yeah, hi. It's a wonderful report. Can I just refer to this table here, chart here?
Yeah.
Obviously, there's one child died. Can I guess is that child died in care, or
I don't think we can discuss individual, because that's a very specific thing. We can't go into individual cases within this.
Right.
Any other questions? Can I just ask one thing? So on the PowerPoint, which wasn't, I don't believe it was in the report, but on one of your slides, you talked about the various dispute resolution reasons. And you've referenced different things there. Are you happy with the amount? Or obviously you're never going to be happy and you want it to be 0, but is that what you would expect? Is that reasonable that you're having 134?
So, yeah, I mean, there's always a balance, isn't there? Because the independent reviewing officers are expected to challenge the quality of practice that happens in the local authority social work. So it's that balance of, you know, you wouldn't want no dispute resolutions being raised. I think it kind of shows our improvement journey that our independent reviewing officers do have high standards. They do scrutinise care plans and every aspect of work that's happened with the child, and they will challenge the drift and delay and the quality of practice as well. So I think it's about right at the moment. We would expect it to see reduce as our practice improves, but there's always a place and space for things to be better for our children, and that's where the IROs sit.
Perfect. So we're not overly concerned that it's not a massive number in context.
No, the number of that doesn't concern us.
Thank you. Any other questions from the members? No? Well, thank you for that report as well, and thank you for the work that you've done there. Swiftly moving on to agenda item number 9, which is the Children's Services, Children's Social Care Complaints, Comments and Compliments, which is, I believe, reported by Tracy.
Good evening, everyone. I don't have a PowerPoint, so you may be pleased to know. The purpose of bringing the report this evening is really for any comments from the committee and or to seek approval for publication of the statutory requirement of the document. The The report is an overview of the complaints that we've received 23-24 for statutory and corporate complaints. If when analysed and set against the procedures, the complaint doesn't fall within the statutory regs, then it will fall within the corporate regulations. So I'll do an overview, a brief overview, obviously, of the figures, and then if anyone's got any questions. Okay, so total number of complaints that we received 23-24 were 255, and they were broken down as 50 statutory complaints. That includes a withdrawn complaint, and there were 8 received the previous year. 205 corporate complaints received, and that included 11 withdrawn complaints, and that was a decrease of 21 complaints compared to the previous year. The overall number of complaints has increased. There's been a lot of work with the complaints team and with a lot of the services to look at the statutory complaints. We've done some training with the local government ombudsman. We attended their training so that we can analyse them to ensure that they're going into the correct process. So that's the reason really for the increase of how we've looked at our complaints. So out of the total 50 statutory complaints received, 16 were upheld, 33%, and 14 were partially upheld, 29%. And this compares, obviously, as I said, to 8 statutory complaints received in the period 22-23. 2 were upheld, 25%, and 4 were partially upheld. So there's been an increase in the upheld and partially upheld statutory complaints. Out of the 205 corporate complaints received, 60 were upheld, 31%, and 47 were partially upheld, 24%. And this compares to a total of 226 corporate complaints received for the period of 22-23, of which 69 were upheld, 31%, and 48 were partially upheld, 21%. So in comparison to 22-23, there has been an increase in the number of corporate complaints upheld and a reduction in those partially upheld. Additionally, we've had 15 stage 2 corporate complaints received, and they've been broken down as follows: 9 SEN, 2 CDT, 1 fostering and performance, 1 family safeguarding, 1 assessment team, and 1 adolescent safeguarding team. And of those 15 cases, only 4 cases were actually upheld. We've also had 9 stage 2 statutory independent reviews in the statutory complaints process. If it reaches stage 2, it has to actually be done by an independent investigation. So that's outsourced and it's independently investigated under the statutory regulations. And of those, there's been 8 for CDT and 1 family safeguarding. And of these, 1 was upheld, 4 partially upheld, and 2 not upheld. And at the running of this report, 2 were ongoing, and there is still 2 ongoing. And of the 255 statutory and corporate complaints received, 6 of them were for young people, which is an increase from 4 of the previous year. The main 3 issues arising across the complaints concern the quality of service, delay, and communication lack and poor, and this is broadly the same main reasons for the complaints during 22-23. If they don't fall under the category of a statutory or a corporate complaint, we can log them as a comment, but in those cases, people will still get a written response. There have been 2 complaints which have been progressed to stage 3 of the stage 3 of the statutory regulations. A total of 8 cases proceeded to the local government ombudsman, and this compares to 9 cases in 22-23, so a slight reduction. And the ombudsman investigations were regarding the following. So we've got 1 case for adolescent safeguarding, which was upheld, 4 cases in relation to SEN and EHCP, and 4 of those were upheld, 1 CDT case not upheld, 1 transport upheld, and 1 adolescent safeguarding upheld. We haven't had any public reports issued against the local authority, and the Ombudsman can issue a public report against us if they decide if there is a number of complaints in relation to the same area, or if they believe that we failed to follow specific guidelines or regs. The 31% of the statutory complaints received a response within 10 working days, and this is an increase on the 25% for 22-23. So overall, 57% of statutory complaints received a response within 20 working days. 12% of the statutory complaints received a response over 20 working days. 63% of corporate complaints received a response within 20 working days, and this is an increase on the performance of 22-23, where it was 48%. So it is a marked improvement. So their overall performance, 68% of all statutory and corporate complaints were responded to within 20 working days, compared to 49 for the previous year. We continue to provide regular reminders and offer support where applicable to ensure that any responses that are to ensure they reach timescales. And we've broken down a percentage of when cases have exceeded the timescales, what the reasons were for this. So 8% staff absence, complex cases 25%. I know this is a children's select committee, but I also sit in the adult select committee and present the same. And we're finding that both adults and children's complaints are becoming far more complex than they have, and increasing to become more complex. Going back to that 26 cases, 11% of all the work pressures, which including safeguarding, child protection, because obviously that would supersede completing the responses. Informal comments, as I said before, 39 compared to 22, but they all do get a written response to those. And not to get compliments, because we do deal with those as well, and we do get them. And the figure for this year was 93 compared to 102. And then obviously we've got examples of compliments. I think that's really an overview of the report. Sorry, it's a bit of a whistle-stop tour. But if anyone's got any questions.
Any questions, Councillor Archer?
Thanks. Yeah, just one. The complex cases, are there common factors in the complex cases, and what are they, if there are common factors?
Not necessarily. I think from a complainant's point of view, it's one, their expectations, and two, that complex case could sit over several services. So it's really trying to coordinate those services, because as far as the complainants, they've raised a complaint. They don't know it sits with several services to try and do that. And it's really trying to manage that within 20 working days is quite difficult when you've got several services involved. And it could be that they can't always resolve it just by going through the complaint. It could be that people want to go out or to see the person that's involved. And it's dealing with people's emotions, isn't it, with the complexity. So not every one size fits all. And that's really more, and there is no one common factor. It can just be several factors across, really.
Councillor Ridney?
Yeah. I would thoroughly back you up in what you just said, because we're in our own casework, often they're coming to you as one complaint, but actually it isn't. It's across a number of departments, and just trying to fathom it all out is quite complex for us. I don't know when you get the final complaint, but you know, they'll start off as one thing. As the conversation goes on, you find, oh no, it's nothing to do with that department. This is actually to do with it. So I think the complexity of the complaint are getting more difficult for us to even know when someone complains to us where we actually direct it. You know, I think, and well done for doing it. And I wouldn't take it as a negative that the number of complaints have gone up. I would say that we're actually, it's a positive thing, because we're welcoming those complaints and taking them on and trying to sort them out for people. So I think it's just the nature of complaints now are more complicated and across more departments. If you can't sort them out, I mean, you know, have some sympathy for us poor guests.
Anything you want to respond to that? Oh.
No, they are very complex, but I think it's just managing people's expectations, isn't it, really, for on behalf of the local authority, of what we can achieve within the timescales that are set under statutory regs, but also managing the expectations of the complainant. And that's the most difficult part, I think, really, having the empathy, but also trying to put that in line of the procedures as well. That's more difficult.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah. Just
Councillor Roberts.
just a comment, I have a question really on page 89. You talk about the three main issues, right, about all the complaints, particularly the communication lack or poor. Does that concern you?
In all honesty, it comes up with in each area with adults and children that communication. And again, I think, yes, it is a concern, but again, it's people's expectations. If you've got a lot of people trying to contact the same people all of the time, it's managing that expectation, isn't it? Of what people expect as soon as they pick the phone up to speak to that person and constantly speak to the same person, and it's managing those expectations. So yes, it is a concern with communication, but I do think it is as well, like I've said, is managing that and trying to keeping people informed. We do that with ourselves. If we believe a complaint's going to exceed timescales, the first thing we'll do, we'll notify the complainant to let them know. It's nothing more infuriating. Anybody knows when they raise a complaint that they're just left without not knowing anything. So I think it's just trying to keep that regular vein of communication really in line.
It's stating that it's broadly the same as 22-23.
And
what lessons you're learning from that to try to rectify that about it's in your report, the lack of poor communication. Surely part of that is getting better communication back to the complainant and managing that expectation.
It is, but that's reflective of what the complaint is based on. So it's not necessarily our communication with the complainant. It's more what the complainant has raised. So if they've been trying to reach a service and they haven't had that communication back, that's based on their side of it. So, but Karen might be able to elaborate a little bit more.
Sorry, I was
Sorry.
trying to convey the same. No, I mean, it is a challenge, and as Tracy has explained, that kind of emotional intensity for somebody who might want a different answer sometimes, that can be, classified as a communication. But just to remind the committee that we'll have in 6 months' time the kind of how we applied the learning, what actions we continue to take across the directorate as part of that. So we make sure that every 6 months, then we'll either have Tracy's report or the kind of actions that follow up. But it is fair to say that I've never known an adults or a children's complaints report that doesn't say communication. They're not listening to me. The answer's wrong. It's not a major thing. And at times, we need to do more to enable people either to hear the information or to respond back in a timely way.
Everything.
So communication, it is people's expectations. I had someone ring me up on a Friday night, 7 o'clock, with a complaint. Right? I said, okay, I'll take that, I'll put that in. 12 o'clock on the Monday, they ring me back to see what sort of reply I've got. I'm like, well, only put it in this morning. It is people that they just expect. It's a digital age. You can go onto one of these and you can get an answer. The trouble is things do not work in the same way that we do. They just don't. And I think it is people, they want an instant answer. So I think that the reference to communication can be sometimes, and when I say to them, well, it can be up to 10 days before I get a reply. That's 10 working days, which is 2 weeks, So I sympathise entirely with what you're saying, but it is expectation. And because everything is instant on here, everybody thinks that that's the way the rest of the world, but councils don't work like that, do we? We don't do instant.
No, I'd agree with that. It's about managing expectations when someone does raise that concern from the outset that this is what you can expect from us. Okay. Any other points from any of the members? No. Okay. Moving on to agenda item 10 about the progress track and future business. The report is there. I don't think we need to talk through that. We can see that all the points have been actioned that were from the last minutes. And the work programme, as usual, as I said before, the work programme is a fluid programme and it is adaptable. So if members do want to see something else added or changed, then please do contact me and we can look at what we can do regarding that future work programme. Any other comments that people want to raise regarding that?
I'm just looking at the future business on 21st of November. There's a paper on placement sufficiency for both social care and special educational needs and disabilities. I was wondering, Chair, whether it might make more helpful sense to separate those two elements as two separate papers, purely because the nature of social care placement sufficiency is slightly different to the nature of SEND sufficiency, which is normally related to educational placements rather than residential placements. We're also doing some additional work around our SEND sufficiency, and whether it might be worthwhile bringing a more detailed paper on that in for the January meeting and still maintain the social care sufficiency for the November meeting.
I'm personally happy with that. I think the November meeting is quite heavy already as it is. So anything that we can do to relieve pressure on that meeting will be welcome. So yeah, completely fine. I haven't received any questions with 2 days prior notice, so there's nothing to report back on point 11. So with that, I close the meeting. Thank you for your attendance and thank you for your contributions.